Right, thank you, Dave. And as David said, thank you everyone for being here today. Really appreciate the opportunity to address you all. And I would just like to thank the Chamber for the opportunity today to actually give this address. So not only am I'm trying something new, first off. I have a super long speech prepared. Usually I just wing it, but there's so much going on in the community right now that I really had to write it all down. So if you bear with me, I'm going to be reading a little bit of this and speaking off the cuff at the same time. So first of all, yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity, and we're going to try and make this an annual event. I think it's important that the town actually speaks out and communicates, engages with the community of what it is that we're actually working on. And when I reflected on the State of the Union, we're calling it State of the Town because obviously we're not a union. We're not the U.S. and we are a town. So State of the Town. So it's exciting to talk about all the things we're working on, and as I was reflecting on that, it became pretty clear there's a lot going on and there's a lot to talk about. So I've got slides that we're working on in the background, so if you bear with me with the slideshow at the same time. So let's start with the financial update from where the town is today. So a few points I'd like to discuss. The town is using grant funding wherever possible, particularly as the key source of funding for capital projects. So that's important to talk about. We're not just going to reach into the taxpayer's pocket to utilize taxes for these projects where we have the opportunity to utilize grant funding. Property taxes should be split fairly between the residential and non-residential taxpayer. Right now, Cochrane sits at an 85% residential to 15% non-residential tax base. And what that means is that primarily the residents are carrying the cost of the community. One of the things that Council is really working on is shifting that 85 to 84, 83 over time, getting more and more commercial and light industrial tax base in Cochrane to help offset that burden. I'm going to speak a little bit about that later too. We adopt the user pay principle where warranted in the form of user fees. So water, wastewater, there's on your tax bill you'll see a utility charge that is steeped in user pay model where you use more water, you pay more money. So instead of just having a blanket tax that covers the cost of those services, we actually put that onto the user. So adopting the user pay model. Debt shall be used strategically. So that sounds easy to say, and I'm going to talk about this again later too, but borrowing on the bridge, for example, the bridge was paid for all through off-site levies and grants, which we are paying back. We borrowed money to pay the upfront cost of building the bridge, and then that debt is being repaid by off-site levies in the forms of payments from developers. So, but as I said, I'm going to touch on that. We budget for and collect funds to put away in reserve. So essentially what we're doing there is the town has savings accounts to capital reinvestment, replacement costs. When we buy a fire truck, for example, it has a 10-year lifespan. We start saving in year 1 to replace it in year 10 so that we're not jumping taxes up and down as we need to replace assets. So having a strong reserve funding is important for the town. So overall, what does that mean? Cochrane is in good financial shape. By employing long-term financial planning ideals and strategies that consider the needs of the town as a whole now and well into the future, and by budgeting and spending in line with these ideals, Cochrane will ensure its financial resiliency into the future. So you may have heard some of the issues that Calgary's going through right now with their business tax. Some of what's happened there is there's less business, business because of the oil and gas sector shrinking. We are all aware of what's going on there. But that has caused a shortage in businesses in Calgary for them to utilize or spread that tax burden out over. So when you have 100 less people, the ones that are left are paying the share that the 100 that were there before were paying in their space. So I'm happy that Cochrane is not in that position. We're not relying on one sector over another to keep our taxes where they are. So that is something that offsetting the fluctuations in the tax base is something that we're kind of insulated from with the way that we're doing our business in the community. So you will hear later how I'll in fact be that we were able to add services this year while actually keeping our tax below a 3% increase on the average home. So, over the last decade, and this is not going to be news to anybody, but over the last decade, Cochrane has grown from just over 15,000 residents to nearly 30,000 today. So, up on the screen, you'll see our latest census numbers. And when you explore our community, it's easy to see why. From the Bow River to the majestic mountain backdrop to the historic downtown to our small town character, parks, open space, green areas, Cochrane has a lot to offer. One of the most common things I'm asked, aside from when are we getting a Costco, is why council isn't trying to slow growth, invest in infrastructure, fix traffic, and plan ahead. And the short answer to that is we are. So we are by investing in our core. We are by building infrastructure to connect our community and alleviate traffic congestion, creating a vision for our community's future, and continuously looking to you for your feedback and your guidance. I'd like to start today by talking a little bit about our current state and what we are working on today, and then I will work towards what we're working on in the future. So shortly after we were elected, Council created our strategic priorities. You have a copy in front of you. These priorities set the course for where the town's efforts will be directed. So it's essentially the marching orders for our administration. They guide our organization and the programs and services that staff deliver to the community. Each year, we revisit them. So that is the updated version from 2019. And every year we check in on them just to make sure nothing's changed or maybe a project can be crossed off the list. So I'm not going to go through the entire list. I'll just touch on the high points. So these include connectivity, development and planning, engagement, and facilities and services. So each of these priorities have multiple actions, and there is no singular solution to any one of them. So you will see how everything I'm talking about today is actually linked back to that document and those priorities. So I'm confident that Council would agree that community connectivity is at the top of the list. So it doesn't matter if I'm at a senior's home or a grade 6 class, they're all asking me about traffic and what are we doing about that. So in short, what are we doing? Well, we're doing a lot. You're all aware that in 2018, together with Rocky View County, the town built the $48 million addition to Spray Lakes Family Sports Center. What you may not know is that in this year, 2019, that facility will be debt-free. That is a huge feat to have a $48 million addition that has been created as a multi-use community gathering space. But what has become clear is that we need to make sure that this facility, this gathering space, is accessible. So to achieve this, we are upgrading the roadway infrastructure to incorporate traffic circles. So as you go down to the rec center now, you'll see 2 traffic circles. They kind of, where do they go? We've installed new sidewalks and beginning work on the Jack Tennant Memorial Bridge, which is, I think you have to be living in a cave to not realize that there's a bridge being built. So this is what that bridge is going to look like. And this new piece of infrastructure will alleviate traffic congestion and allow residents from the southern communities to move into our core without using Highway 22. And it opens a secondary access for emergency responders. So I think we had an accident on the old bridge not too long ago, which really accentuated the need for a secondary access for emergency responders. So as you can see, this new connection is truly multimodal with a dedicated pedestrian pathway, bike lanes, and a lookout on top of the actual traffic carrying bridge deck. So, and I'm proud to report that this bridge remains on time and on budget. And in fact, the bridge will be done this summer. And before everybody takes that away and claps and says, wow, it's super ahead of schedule, the bridge portion will be done. The roads leading to the bridge, the $54 million corridor, is fall of 2020. So we will literally have a bridge that is in the middle of the river and roads being built to connect it. So fall of 2020, that will be up and running. So when you consider that nearly 5,000 residents in Riversong, Riviera, and Fireside will now have the option to use the Jack Tennant Memorial Bridge or Highway 22 to pick up groceries, go to work, take kids to school, you can see the positive impacts that this will have on our community connectivity. An investment of this magnitude is no small feat for a relatively small community such as Cochrane, and this project was funded solely from provincial grants and off-site levies. So zero tax dollars being spent on the bridge. So perhaps you're wondering what exactly is an off-site levy. I see a couple of people in the crowd that actually know very well what they are, but the rest of the community always asks, what is an off-site levy? Essentially, the town creates a list of projects, a bridge, fire hall, police station, maybe an intersection. All of these get put on a list. They are divided up amongst the affected developments, and this list is different for each development. And then that is calculated over a per acre charge, and then the developer, as they develop that land, pays the town a fee for which is called an off-site levy. So this means that developers pay their share for development, and they pay the share, and then the town pays the off-site infrastructure for existing residents. So essentially, growth pays for growth. And in the case of the bridge, as I said, no municipal tax dollars were used to fund the $54 million infrastructure investment. And I think it's an important milestone to actually stop on, because a lot of people in the community have asked, why didn't you build the bridge 10 years ago? Well, we would have had to use tax dollars to implement that infrastructure sooner. We could have, but the town chose not to actually have growth pay for infrastructure that is only required because of growth itself. We didn't need a bridge if there was no one across the river. So that was the mentality that the town is using. So the Municipal Government Act, the MGA, defines what projects the town can apply off-site levies to. So we can't just go around and say, we're going to build a new park in downtown Cochrane, and all of the growth is going to pay for it. The province actually dictates to us exactly what it is that we can put on that list and what we can't. So what I'm really happy about is that the province, just after the last election, modernized, they called it, so updated the MGA to allow the town to collect for a couple of different projects that we weren't able to collect for in the past. One of those, police station. So the town of Cochrane quickly adjusted our off-site levy bylaw to include these projects, which then is reflected in our off-site levy bylaw to developers. So any new development after we change that bylaw is now paying and helping pay for that new infrastructure upgrade. Cochrane was one of the first communities to actually do that. I've had conversations with other mayors and other communities that are very nervous about adding more burden to developers in fear of shutting growth down in their community. I've always been an advocate for Cochrane is a beautiful community. I spoke about that already. Everybody knows that. You live here for that reason. We need to leverage that. There does need to be a cost to do growth and development in Cochrane, and I think paying fairly for the costs of that for the residents that already live here is only a fair way to do that. So growth must pay for growth. What we do know, so I said there's the list from the province. Off-site levies are not enough to support all of the growth and much needed infrastructure projects. So advocating to the provincial government to upgrade their roadway intersections which flow through our community is crucial. Again, this is not a news flash to anyone. Upgrades to, there it is, Highway 1A and 22 must remain a top priority. The town has been working with Alberta Transportation to complete the design on this intersection, and designs are almost complete. What we are working with them on is to see if they will continue widening the highway north to Sunset Boulevard. So I think we're going to have a slide here that shows the design at where it is today. And it goes without saying that Cochrane has to have a provincial investment in this intersection. So we cannot do this on our own. It's a $50, $70, $80 million upgrade. As you can see, I actually think people are going to be shocked when that gets built at how large it's going to be. This is the creek here. The blue that you can see on there is a pathway. That is something the town negotiated with the Alberta Transportation to add to their plans. The original design had lights. The town pushed back and said, we do not want lights there. That's the problem now. So that is where we're at. So it's going to connect our residents to their homes, connect our students to their schools, and our workforce to their jobs. Now is the time to build it. So I think everybody, that's the, yeah. I was looking to the, come on. Yeah. So the previous NDP government provided assurance to us that this project was indeed funded, and I am optimistic, given the relationship that I have built with our new MLA, Peter Guthrie, that he will work on our behalf and constantly be in the ear of the Alberta Transportation Minister and the group that is now looking at the budget for the province, and I'm optimistic that the provincial government will follow through and fund this project. So, enough about that. What else are we doing? We are also continuing to work with the province to look to designs and increasing the efficiency of traffic flow on the 1A as it goes through Cochrane. Specifically, we are looking at the intersections of Centre and 5th. 5th's right out in front of us here. One of the options that's being considered is traffic circles. We'd like to see what it would look like if those were functioning as traffic circles, roundabouts, rather than traffic lights, where the impact to Cochrane, my feeling is, as you drive down the hill, even if 1A and 22 is wide open and you're blowing through there, well, you still get stopped at 2 lights to get to that. So we are investigating what we could do with Alberta Transportation to increase the efficiency there. The off-site levy bylaw I spoke about earlier, these 2 intersections were added onto that off-site levy bylaw as soon as we could make the change. This is one of the changes that the provincial government did. Prior to 2018, we were not able to collect for intersections on provincial highways. We are now, and we have started already. So the town will help contribute to the upgrades, and I think that will actually help move along the project so that if we come to the table with something versus just with our hand out, I think the province will be more open to that. So investing in the infrastructure to support the flow of vehicle traffic in and around our community is vital. But a complete multimodal transportation solution is the best way to achieve positive traffic flow and pedestrian flow. This is a rendering. Our goal, our vision, if you will, is to create local and regional pathway networks that connect all of our neighborhoods, and we are working to achieve this by upgrading some of our existing pathways and investing in new pedestrian crossings. The 2 that have garnered the most attention that I get hammered on Facebook on, it seems like daily, pedestrian crossings across the railway. So we have 2 of those that we're working on. One of them is here from the, I'm going to say the Chicken Lady, but I know it's called the Legacy statue, but most commonly known as the Chicken Lady, straight across the tracks to the old old Esso bulk dealership lands. That's what we're showing you here. That is one. The other is the Horse Creek Rail pedestrian crossing that will connect Heartland to West Terrace, and there's still more. CP is really the one that, obviously it's their land, they're the largest landowner in Canada. There's God, and then there's CP, and then there's everybody else. So dealing with CP Rail has been positive, but it's also slow. They have, well, almost every community in Canada is there because of the railway, so they have a lot of jurisdictions that they're in. I would say all of them, and a lot of communities that they deal with for situations like ours. So CP has committed to completing this pedestrian at-grade crossing this summer. So that is exciting. So we recognize that traveling by vehicle, foot, or bicycle is not a solution for all Cochranites. More so, it is well known that a large number of our residents are commuting to Calgary. So what is the solution there? So we're so excited about the upcoming launch of COLT. COLT stands for Cochrane Online, or I always do that, Cochrane On Demand Local Transit. It will be online, but so that it's a unique approach to transit. You think maybe you've heard me talk about it before, and I'm proud to say that we're the first community in Canada to have an all on-demand traffic or transit system. Okotoks is trying to get theirs going and be one day ahead of us, but yesterday I met with Southland, and we put a lease on all of the buses across Alberta so that they have to wait for us. So we are the first. Okotoks really is modeling their system after ours, and I'm really proud that, well, we have a lot of pressure on us to actually deliver on this. A lot of communities across Alberta and Western Canada are looking at Cochrane to see how we pull this off, because it's such a new, underutilized, in my opinion, way of delivering transit that other communities are going to get in line and follow our lead. So it's super cool that we're adding a tech solution to our transit service, and really how it works, skip the dishes. I think I skip the dishes a few times. I'm really not home a lot, so I skip the dishes. Skip the Dishes is an app where you don't have to drive anywhere. You look at, you order something online on your phone. Skip the Dishes. I'm kind of calling our transit system Skip the Car. So you will have an app, the same. It'll be the COLT app. You'll click on the COLT app. You will pick a transit stop that is where you want to be picked up at. You'll pick the transit stop that you want to be dropped off at, and you put that into the app, and then the bus is hailed and the software does the rest. There will be other people that will be doing similar stops, except that it'll be their own, and the bus will only go to where the demand is, hence the on-demand name. No more fixed route where the bus is driving around in hopes of picking somebody up that's not there. All the bus stops will be within 400 meters of everybody's home, so you don't have to walk all that far. So that is essentially what COLT is. So as David said, I'll take some questions at the end. So the buses are on order. They're going to be wrapped just like that. Pretty unique. Our own in-house communication department came up with that. I'm really proud of how it looks. It's our own brand, and it's our own bus that's going to be our own Cochrane, made in Cochrane solution. So that is transit. Another mode of transit is heavy rail commuting. So I've been talking a little bit about this. That's a great shot. I took that myself, thank you. It is of the work platform that CP uses when they move into a community to actually start building something. So I was really happy when I came out of a building and saw them there. So another solution we're looking at is heavy rail commuting to Calgary. And there's a group that is formed that is trying to get a heavy rail commuter system built between the airport in Calgary to downtown Calgary to Cochrane, Morley, Canmore, and Banff. So the Bow Valley Corridor. So in my my view, that would really revolutionize how we travel in the Bow Corridor. It sounds like a pipe dream and a way off, hundreds of millions of dollars solution, and yes, it is hundreds of million. It's $800 million is the capital cost. We're looking at who would operate, how we would fund it, but there's a group of us, and I've been pushing the group a little bit. We're actually hosting a lot of the meetings here in Cochrane to get these mayors of these other communities and private investment together to actually make this a reality. CP is open to the solution. They feel it would be a second track that they would build in their right-of-way, so there is no land negotiations to happen. It would just be a lease agreement with CP. CP would use the rail on the off time, so in the evening for more industry to move, commercial goods. So I think the solution is close. CP says they could build it in 18 months. So we just need to get our group together to lobby the province, and in my view actually the federal government, to come through with a solution. It's pretty easy to say. I mean, I said Morley, so we have an Indigenous factor. I said Banff, so we have a federal park interest. So I think there are enough heavy players at the table to actually make this a reality in the short term rather than 50 years out. So I'm hoping 5 to 7. I'm Mr. Optimist, but that's kind of the timeline I've been working on. So that will have a huge impact on traffic too. So I've talked a lot about the investments we're making in our bridges, roads, paths, and transit system, but yet this infrastructure investment is only truly successful if we have plans and community development to support it. I'm sure you may have heard we've been working on our land use bylaw, and this is where everybody should take a sip of coffee, because land use bylaw is not the most exciting of topics, but if I can explain a little bit about what the land use bylaw is. Before your home or business was constructed, your neighborhood was developed, and the land use bylaw was established, a set of rules to govern what could be built, where, and for what purpose. So everybody, whether they like it or not, is touched by the land use bylaw. So Cochrane's rapid growth has presented new and diverse development trends that with an ever-increasing level of complexity, and it is important that our land use bylaw meets the use that is now our community. So as our community changes and our residents' needs change, our community's unique character needs to be reflected in the land use bylaw. So we are working to finalize this project, and it's ongoing over the next year. So a little bit more about development. These are the stats from 2017, and it's a lot to take in, but really essentially the high points are 558 new units were built in 2017. In 2018, 359 new units were built, 211 building permit or development permits were received, and 4 new neighborhood plans were approved. So while the community is saying no more growth, it's actually slowed, and you can see. That is primarily the market that is doing that. So looking ahead, we project that we have enough land within our own town boundaries today to accommodate 20 to 23 years more of growth at this same rate, this 4% growth rate. One of the barriers that we know we are faced with to accommodate future growth is water and water capacity. And we are working to continue lobbying Alberta Environment and our MLA, Peter Guthrie, who I mentioned before, and the Calgary Metropolitan Region. We're working with all 3 of those levels of government to establish a solution to Cochrane's water license capacity. So I believe Mr. Guthrie will be speaking to this soon in the legislature. Him and I connect at least once a week on items, and this is one on his high priority list. Regional planning and solutions are the way forward. So earlier this year I was elected vice chair of this group. I thought it was important to have Cochrane at the forefront of this, and it provides me the opportunity to ensure that Cochrane's voice is heard as decisions are being made that impact the entire region. And while we plan regionally, we also continue to plan and develop within our own borders. So You've likely heard about the Greystone development, which will be located in the old Burnco gravel pit. This is a rendering of that. I'd like to provide a quick update of where this project is at. The next step for this development is remediation of the gravel pit itself. So it's kind of a Burnco side still. With the Alberta environment, a gravel pit must remediate back to a certain state. I don't know all the rules, but that is what they're doing now. So you'll see some action down on the Greystone area, which is just remediation. After that, the developer is planning to come forward with an application for land use, and I'm told it would be this fall, where council will have the opportunity to actually zone the uses of the land. So there will be no homes, there will be no development there within the next couple of years, but we anticipate that those uses would be light industrial, commercial, and some residential, creating a complete neighborhood. So that 85-15 I spoke about earlier, the residential, non-residential tax split, this community, in my hope, will help move the needle back a little bit closer to 84. So as I said, that development is about 2 years away from seeing any real business being moved there. So one of the things I've heard from residents in their desire to work is to work locally. To that end, we are focused on spurring local economic development and working with local industry to provide jobs. And it starts with the funding we receive for transit. So this is kind of a unique thing, and I'm pretty happy about this. I spoke about transit. We are utilizing a grant from the province, $6 million, which the town had to come up with $3 million, so we have $9 million. The $3 we used to purchase that piece of property right there, the former Esso Bulk dealership land. So what we are asking administration to do is, we have $6 million. Well, what else can we do with $6 million? Yes, we're going to build transit and get that going and operating, but we believe that with our technology that we already have in place, Garmin, 4Eyes, MC Things, that we are continue to become a hub for emerging technologies, and those industries are already locating here. So how can we leverage that with our transit funds and the opportunity that we have in front of us? It's showing that, research shows that if we can get businesses to start here, they're more apt to locate here in the future, thereby creating more local jobs. So this is one of the 3 main projects identified in the Tri-Site strategy, is the transit hub. So it's on the western portion, so that's I don't have a pointer, but that, you know where I'm pointing. So this is the first priority in that Tri-Site concept plan. So the design and construction for the transit hub and municipal services building at the former Esso Bulk Station site is underway, but we're asking administration to look at, can we build another floor or 2 on there, and how much would that cost, and then what is the risk of doing that versus what the reward would be. So administration, we're going to actually be voting on this in council on Monday to move this forward. My hope is that council will see the benefits of this, to actually cost out the benefits of, as I said, adding a 2nd or 3rd floor. What I would like to see there is something, I had the opportunity to visit in Waterloo, I think feels like last week, I think it was a month ago. Coming back from Quebec City at a conference, I stopped in Waterloo, and there is the most successful incubator in Canada, and I maybe want to say North America, but I'll say Canada just to be safe. They have 60 companies that they operate in there. Essentially what they've done is subsidized startup tech companies. They have a 2-year window of subsidized rent, basically free rent, where they provide Wi-Fi, bathrooms, coffee maker, and dry space to incubate their ideas. So there's a board in place that an application would come in, so you have an idea, you take it to the board, they say yes or no, and if it's yes, you're allowed to be in. So they have 60 ins right now of tech companies that they're fostering in Waterloo. So they have essentially turned a 50-year-old tannery, and that's what I'm inside here. This was an old tannery in Waterloo, 50 years vacant. The city of Waterloo and the university co-funded this idea, and it's 10 years old, and they have transformed the downtown of Waterloo from that 50-year-old vacant industry that has all moved out to a vibrant economy that they are driving themselves, and I feel like Cochrane has that same opportunity to do that. So we're going to look at what the cost to doing that is. Obviously we don't want to risk too much. So, but I think it's going to be insignificant, the amount that we can reinvest to get a huge payback in the long term. So research shows that if you start a new business on your own, you have a 10% chance of making it, at least in the tech world. What they're finding in Waterloo is 65% of the companies that they're putting through this incubator are successful. And then they're relocating their company once they move out of the 2 years into Waterloo, buying land, employing people. There is new high-end apartments being built around this old warehouse district that is now a really cool place to be. So I can see that we have Garmin, as I said, 4Eyes, MC Things. We have over 500 high-paying tech jobs in a community of 30,000 people already. When I said that to those people in Waterloo, they were astounded. Like, that is a high number of tech jobs in a community for our size. We already have it going on here. So and that's a little bit of luck, a little bit of, I think, location, but I really want to key in on that. So a key priority in planning for this facility is ensuring that we continue to connect the quarry commercial area with our historic downtown, and we are looking to install that at-grade pedestrian crossing I spoke about earlier, which will be that pedestrian connection, and that is really going to be the gateway into that exciting new corridor. So I would really like to see a tech district develop on our railway street. So outside of our downtown core, there are a number of other developments taking place. We are awaiting provincial approval on our annexation application. I'm told we've heard back from the province that July 1st we could expect that to go through, which is exciting. I was thinking with the change in government, it may not happen quite so quickly, but we're being told July 1st. So one of the first concerns I heard from our community was single accesses into existing residential areas. So one of the solutions that the annexation B on the screen is going to alleviate is allow the developer in that area to provide a long-term access plan that will be completed in phases over multiple years to add a second access to Sunset Ridge. So first phase you will see is a 2-lane north access, while the first build-out, or the full build-out, you'll see a 4-lane access, which is anticipated to be completed over the next 10 years. So really it's going to be market that drives. As more growth happens there, then we'll be moving north to get that second access built. And I want to be clear in stating that the completion of the final phases of Sunset Ridge will only happen once the required infrastructure improvements on Highway 22 are done. So the growth won't be allowed to occur. No more residents will move in there past phase 2 into phase 3 until that link is built. So this includes the widening of Highway 22, the addition of a dual turn lane at Sunset Boulevard, and the completion of the secondary access. So that is a lot of highway work that needs to be done before more residents can actually move into that area. So it's something that residents have asked for and something that we're sticking to. So the other piece of land we are looking to annex on the is the quarter section north on Heritage Hills, and that was A in that last slide. And this will also play a key role in the development of our community. We have collaborated with Rocky View School Division to create a vision for these lands and I'm happy to share that it is all outdoor recreation focused. The vision and planning for this project began in 2015 following the purchase of the property by Rocky View School Division. So they own the quarter right now. We are working out a plan where the town will purchase that, and the Rocky View School Division will keep roughly 30 acres for a new high school, which I'm told will not be really built for about 10 years, but the Rocky View School Division is looking ahead at the needs of high schools in Cochrane. The park space will include many of the amenities that community groups require with the growth of their clubs. You know, we've had the growth of our community. That means growth in baseball, rugby, football, everything. So what we're planning to build up on the quarter section is to alleviate some of that pressure, but also allow that the plan for the Fifth Avenue, the tri-site, this site right here where we are, can start to come to fruition. So the vision and the planning, as I said, started in 2015, and the park space will include many of the amenities that the community groups require, and it is will also make room on this site for the ball diamonds to move up north, which will then allow plans to come through here to allow, and I've met recently with the seniors on the Bow, the Boys and Girls Club, and the Lions Club to talk about what their new facility would look like. They're starting to make lists of their facility needs so that we can move towards building a blueprint, a set of construction drawings, so that we can have something that those groups can actually fundraise for, get excited about, community can visualize what's going to be here, and council will be considering that master plan next week. So I encourage you to stay tuned for some of the exciting announcements. We're going to have a whole, I was hoping we could have it today, but council needs to see it first. So lots of work being done there, and I'm excited about the outcome. So moving on, and I'm almost done, and we'll be at the question period time. So, or maybe I'll leave 3 seconds for questions. Having previously served on council, I feel I've had the unique experience of creating a vision with that council, having that vision approved, and then seeing it constructed. And I was not on council while it was being constructed. So what I actually got to experience was the community experiencing it. So I think I have I've drawn a lot of insight from that experience. So one of the things I've brought to this council that I'm happy that we're working on is a compelling vision that builds community ownership and drives decision making and directs investment in Cochrane. So our council has been working on a vision. And why? So I talked about that Metropolitan Region Board earlier. That board is asking each of the communities in the region to come up with a plan for the region. So while I felt quickly that we need to have our own vision in place before we can actually go and say how we want the region to be, we want to know what our little piece of the region want. What does our community want inside that region? So we need a vision, and this is my view. We need a vision to guide us into the future and ensure we are creating a community that you will not only continue to call home, but you will be proud to do so. So that is the reason why. So second slide here, and we're going to go through it quickly. Not a lot of people realize what's going on. You know, maybe I think the town's doing a way better job of communicating what we're doing inside our boundaries, but not a lot of people know what's happening on the outside. So development is rapidly occurring on our borders. So we're going to go through a quick, so not a lot of people, everybody realizes we have a First Nations to the west, Morley and Stoney Nakoda, but not a lot of people realize we actually share a boundary with them up on George Fox Trail at Bow Ridge. The Stoney Nakoda Reserve actually touches Cochrane. So as we go around, we're just going to go around the clock here. Burnco has a gravel operation that's been approved by the county west of Cochrane on 1A. They have bought 6 quarter sections, and there's a gravel operation currently operating west of Cochrane. And I'm not saying any of these are necessarily bad, I'm just saying that this is what is. To the north, we have Cochrane Lake and Montera, which is part of the Cochrane North Area Structure Plan, which, if allowed to build out under the current plan, will see 13,000 people live north of Cochrane. As we go to the west, we have Bears Paw. Everybody's aware of all the acreages between Calgary and Cochrane to the east, along 1A. That will see 4,000 people there. Glenbow Ranch is another one. Glenbow Park, Provincial Park, is a big part of the Glenbow Ranch Area Structure Plan. There will be, at full build out when that is finally done, 13,400 people. To the south we have Harmony, which is in Springbank, and everybody feels like it's a long ways away, but as the crow flies you can see it's not that far from Cochrane's southern boundary. All of these things are happening whether we want them to right now, like them to stop. They're creating pressures on Cochrane. So this is one of the reasons why we're doing our vision. So I'm going to go through quickly. You can go online and kind of check out this for yourself, but the council and administration got together and decided what are the things that we really want to keep, preserve, enhance about Cochrane. One of them is green space. You don't have it? Oh, there it is. Green space. So as we overlay this map, and what I like about this rendition is it's really easy to follow. People get it. So green space. We're saying that is something, and we on purpose have gone into Rocky View County to say, you guys need to get on the same page as we are. That green space is important, the riparian areas, the Cochrane Hill, the Glenbow Ranch, the Big Hill Springs, all of these, the Bow River obviously. Cochrane's blessed to have all of these natural amenities in Cochrane. We need to preserve them. They're the no-go zone for development into the future. I'm happy to say Rocky View actually has a lot of these written into their plan, so we're kind of on the same page already, but this is the first time we're actually coming out and saying that together. Next thing is density. It's hard to see on there. We put a blue blob in the middle. Council saying we would like to see more people living in our downtown core. So the density of residents in downtown is important. As you go out from the core, we would still have traditional neighborhoods, larger lots, which will give residents options on housing from maybe an apartment all the way to a bungalow and single family large lot. So that's what the density piece is. Second, we're saying, as I said earlier, we have enough land for development to occur within our town boundaries for the next 30 or so years. But if we were to expand, where would it be? And the orange is where we're saying we need to expand to. And it's not just for more residential growth, it's also for non-residential growth and open park space. So the big orange blob on that little L piece there on the map is actually the Cochrane Hill. The Franciscans own that particular piece of property. We would like to see it be all inside of the town of Cochrane. Right now it's kind of split half between the county and Cochrane. The next piece is gateways. So, and this is a big one for me and what most people seem to be resonating on. We feel that Cochrane, to preserve our small town feel, whether we're 30,000 or 50,000 people in the future, if we don't have some separation from the city, we will become Bowness. Nothing against Bowness, but it's a suburb of Calgary that was engulfed enveloped by the city, but it was a small town at one time. So if we don't put up a boundary of rural character area, that's what we're calling it in municipal speak, really we just want countryside on our boundaries so that when you leave Calgary, you drive through some form of non-residential, and that can be acreages, we have it now, and then there will be a sense of arrival as you get to Cochrane. So I think maybe 90% of the people I've talked to that moved to Cochrane have done so because they've come over the top of the Cochrane Hill and the valley lays out below and the town is nestled down there and the panoramic mountains in the background and that Bow River and the sun's shining and the nice birds fly by and everybody wants to move to Cochrane. Well, we need to preserve preserve the outside of our boundaries so that we actually have that buffer zone of not becoming, and I'll pick on Airdrie a little bit, they've got malls that are, setting up between Calgary and Airdrie, and I don't think you can tell the difference between when you leave Calgary, go through Balzac, and arrive in Airdrie. We would like to really not let that happen here in Cochrane. And that's on all 4 of our gateways. So that's essentially our vision. As I said, it's in draft right now, so if you have any comments or you think it's really cool and you want to say it's awesome, please do so and share your input on letstalkcochrane.ca. Okay. Well, this is wrap-up time. So part of my being, my who I am as a person is interpersonal relationships. So to do business at any level, I believe that you have to establish good relationships. So whether that be with a council colleague in my case, an administrator, as the CAO or everyone else at the town, community at large, business people, other communities outside of Cochrane, and neighbors, relationships to me are vital in moving us forward. So one of those relationships that I've been working on, and this is a really Indigenous flavored picture that I was supposed to share one of my own, but this is stock. But one of those relationships that we've been really making headway with is Stoney Nakoda, the First Nation to the west that I spoke about. So I've had multiple dialogues with them, with chiefs, elders, and I've in turn been invited by them to special occasions on the reserve, on their lands, to celebrate with them the opening of their certain things or an inauguration of a chief. And in fact, tomorrow I'm connecting the seniors on the bow, our own seniors, with elders from Morley. We're connecting them with we're getting a busload of elders from Morley to come to have coffee at Seniors on the Bow. So I think I'm excited about what that could turn into. Or I'm just going to put this and then hopefully they carry on in the future and continue to do that. So, but making connections at as many levels as possible is, for me, is the way to create a better community. So thank you for listening and hanging on to the end. And in closing, I'd like to share one final thought. It's grad season. I've been asked to speak at all of the grads again. Something I take super seriously. You've got that young mind that is sitting there and they can't wait to go and party, but they have to listen to someone speak first. So you have their attention for 5 minutes. While they gave me 2, I take 5. So I've been leaving them with this message, and I'm just going to read it. When I graduated in 1986, I know, hard to believe, most of us couldn't wait to leave Cochrane. Many of my classmates felt that in order to achieve their dreams and aspirations, they had to leave. Since then, we have evolved into, and continue to evolve, into a world-class community with a diverse economy and a quality of life that's envied around the world. So I've been asking them to consider making Cochrane their home. So go and travel, change your postal code once, see the world, but consider coming back to Cochrane because, as you know, we have a lot to offer. So I've appreciated having the time to share the message with you today. Thank you for listening, and I'd be happy to take any questions unless I've answered them all in my 50-page speech.